Okay, Year 10, we're going to annotate the very first section of the last stave of A Christmas Carol. We're going to be looking at the theme of happiness and change, so how much Scrooge has changed since the beginning of the novella. Okay, remember it's a small novel, short novel, so it's called a novella. And as part of that, we're going to be looking at the idea of redemption. Okay, so that means in this case it's saving Scrooge's soul. So what he does to save his soul from going to hell. Okay, so we're going to read through this section, which is only 2 sides of A4, and it's big font and it's spaced out. So there's not a huge amount, but there's an awful lot to say about it. But before we do that, we need to just look back at the very end of the previous chapter, or stave as Scrooge called them. So all of his chapters are called staves because it's a musical term and it fits in with the idea of A Christmas Carol. Okay, so the last paragraph of the previous chapter reads, "Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost." So he finds himself at home after this very traumatic encounter with the spirit of Christmas yet to come that shows him his horrific future if he doesn't become a better man. And the really important words there are to have his fate reversed. So that's all tied in with redemption. Okay, if he doesn't change, then he's going to hell. Okay, and if he manages to reverse his fate, then he could go to heaven and he'll just be a better man anyway. And that will make him happier, as we'll see towards the end of the stave. And we see that in this part too. Okay, so we need to read through this part of the stave. So, yes, and the bedpost was his own, the bed was his own, the room was his own, best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own, to make amends in. "I will live in the past, the present and the future," Scrooge repeated as he scrambled out of bed. "The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees." He was so fluttered and so glowing with his good intentions that his broken voice would scarcely answer to his call. He had been sobbing violently in his conflict with the spirit, and his face was wet with tears. "They are not torn down," cried Scrooge, folding one of his bed curtains in his arms. "They are not torn down, rings and all. They are here. I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be. I know they will." Okay, flip the page over. His hands were busy with his garments all this time, turning them inside out, putting them on upside down, tearing them, mislaying them, making them parties to every kind of extravagance. "I don't know what to do," cried Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath, and making a perfect Leah Cohen of himself with his stockings. "I am as light as a feather. I am as happy as an angel. I am as merry as a schoolboy. I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hello here. Whoop, hello." He had frisked into the sitting room and was now standing there, perfectly winded. "There's the saucepan that the gruel was in," cried Scrooge, starting off again and going round the fireplace. "There's the door by which the ghost of Jacob Marley entered. There's the corner where the ghost of Christmas present sat. There's the window where I saw the wandering spirits. It's all right. It's all true. It all happened. Ha ha ha!" Really, for a man who had been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid laugh, a most illustrious laugh, the father of a long, long line of brilliant laughs. Okay. So, even though Scrooge started to change early on, and it's really important that you make that distinction if the exam question asks you about his change, it's here that we see the culmination, the sort of final coming together of lots of things that show us very, very clearly that he's happy. Okay, so we start with this paragraph, yes, and the bedpost was his own. Just let me twiddle the camera a wee bit. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all. The time before him was his own to make amends in. Just change it a bit to get the focus better. Now this word yes, okay, this starts, get a pen that works, miss. Okay, it's an idea of victory. Okay, if you score a goal in a football match, you might go, yes! So what is Scrooge victorious over? He's got victory over his former self. Okay, now I'm trying to write with a camera tripod and a couple of lights here, so my handwriting isn't going to be as good as it should be. But also this word yes tells us that he feels a great sense of relief. You know, you might say, well, something turned out better than you thought it would, and you might say yes with relief. Okay, so these are ideas that are tied up with his happiness, and why not have this idea of yes just being a declaration of happiness itself. It's such a simple way to start this new stave, this new chapter, but it's effective. And he's got an exclamation mark there, and exclamation marks make a text more dramatic and emphatic. And emphatic just means that it emphasises. I'm just going to broaden the focus there a wee bit. Okay. Emphatic means that something is emphasised. Okay, so look, we've just got one word and a bit of punctuation, and we've managed to say several things about it. So that just shows you don't have to know every single quote in the story or in any of your literature texts to be able to say a lot about them. Let's read on. The bedpost was his own, the bed was his own, the room was his own. Okay, so these are all familiar ideas. I'm going to put my hand around here. These are all familiar to him. He's home and he's safe, and that idea will come up later as well. So he's back at home after this very traumatic journey. Okay, but these are all material things. Okay, he's relieved because he hasn't been through these terrible experiences that he saw of people talking in an unfriendly way about him after he had supposedly died, of the thieves taking his things. So he's relieved that everything has gone back to normal. Okay, so that's why Dickens has popped in the bedpost and the bed and the room. Okay, but what about this? Best and happiest. Okay, these words are adjectives, but they're what we call superlatives, and Dickens uses an awful lot of these. Okay, you can stop the video to write superlatives. It's super, L-A-T-I-V-E-S, and again it's a little bit untidy because I'm trying to write in a way that I wouldn't normally write here. Okay. And superlatives exaggerate, and in this case they exaggerate how wonderful he feels. Let's put S for Scrooge. So how much relief he has and how much happiness he has. But look at what's really important to him. The time before him was his own. That's more important than the things he owns, like the bed and the room. Okay. And this is because he now has the chance to be a better man. So he now has the chance to be a better man. And that's what it means by make amends. So make amends, if you think you're not going to remember what that means, he has the chance to fix him. Fix things. Fix him. Yeah, fix himself. Okay. Writing things in an exam isn't isn't a good way to go. So you could say he has to fix the past. Okay. Then he says, I will live in the past, the present and the future. Okay, so he's remembering the ghosts. Okay, the three spirits. So he remembers the spirits. I've changed my colour pen here just so that it's a bit clearer. I'm going to write recalls. Spirits. Okay. Scrooge repeated as he scrambled out of bed. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Okay, and this idea of him recalling the spirits makes it clear that he has benefited from their presence, from them visiting him. So when he says he can make amends here, it's just because the spirits have shown him the error of his ways. Okay. He says, Dickens says, he scrambled out of bed. So that is a way of showing his excitement. Okay, so that just says excitement there. And he says that the lessons that he's learned will strive within him. So that means to work hard. So he's going to work hard to be a better man. Okay. And then he remembers Jacob Marley. Okay, so this makes us recall the beginning, so that we are forced to consider the change in Scrooge, and that change is dramatic by the time we get to the end, even though he started to change early on. So you can add those notes now. Okay. And look at what a massive change there is. Heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. Okay, these thoughts contrast completely with the beginning of the story, and it would be good to have in your mind, even if you can't remember an exact quote, it would be good to have in your mind the gist of something that he said. So he said that anybody who goes around with a happy Christmas on their lips should be buried with a stake of holly through their heart. Now, that might not be a word-for-word quote, but it would certainly do for making a link between an extract like this and another part of the text, which is what the examiners want you to do in your exam. Okay, and look here, he's on his knees, he's praying, he's thankful to Jacob Marley and to the spirits, and he's humble. Okay, he's gone from humbug to humble, and that is a way that Dickens shows a change. Okay. Now, for those of you who are aiming a little bit higher in your exam, I'm going to change my pen colour now because really need this to stand out. Look, he says here, shall strive. Okay, the spirits of all three shall strive within me. So what he's saying there, and with this word will, is I'm determined to make it happen. And it matches with this word strive. So these three words together show his determination to be a better man. Okay. Now, as you can see, my notes are getting quite scruffy, but yours can be neater than this because you're not trying to do it so that it shows up to a camera. But if your notes are scruffy, ask for another copy of this sheet, and then in your own time make the effort, because it will be worth it, make the effort to create a tidy set of notes. Okay. What I want to say also about words like shall and with is they're very strong verbs. Okay, they're not or might live in the past. The spirits of all three could strive within me. He's actually using very strong verbs there, and they're a particular type of verb. Okay, so at the top of the mark scheme, you really must get your terminology right. These are strong modal verbs. And modal verbs just show possibility or probability. So could, would, should, might, may, will, shall. Okay, so let's move on. But just remember this word scrambled from here. So he's lost control, but that's not a bad thing. Scrooge needed to lose some of that tight control of his ways. He was so fluttered and so glowing with his good intentions that his broken voice would scarcely answer to his call. He had been sobbing violently in his conflict with the spirit, and his face was wet with tears. Start with this bit at the end, okay? So we know that he can feel emotion. But don't forget, okay, so he's emotional here, don't forget that he did start to show emotion earlier on when he was with the spirit of Christmas past. He was talking about the carol singer and about his clerk, and he felt guilt and shame. And he said that there was a pimple on his face, and it was a tear. We're not told it's a tear. We're led very strongly to believe by Dickens that it's a tear. So he's not just emotional here. Those emotional changes start earlier on, but he's very demonstrably, okay, that means he's showing it very clearly, emotional here. So I asked you to remember this word scrambled, and then you've got this word fluttered here. So he's lost control. And this is a man who was very controlled over his emotions. He was very clear about what he felt and thought of Christmas and people who celebrated Christmas. He thought it was all humbug, and he felt, as I said just a few moments ago, that anyone who went around with a Merry Christmas on their lips should be buried with a stake of holly through their hearts. We can double check that reference. And he's also glowing with his good intentions. He's happy. That glow reminds us of Fred at the beginning. Okay, so that's his face, it's his complexion, and he's sort of shining with good intentions. So that's what I'm going to put there. He's shining with good intentions. And that contrasts with the description at the beginning, where he had a frost hanging off of him, and I think his nose was blue as well, but we can check that description, and you should check that description too. Okay, his broken voice we've come across before, and this shows also that he's emotional. He had a broken voice when he was talking about the carol singer earlier and saying, oh, I wish I'd given him some money. Okay. We just, for wet with tears, we'll put sobbing violently. Okay, because that just indicates what a traumatic experience he's had with the spirit of Christmas past. But as it's been so traumatic, it explains why he exclaims with relief. Yes, at the beginning of the chapter. I'm just going to write in here, actually, and you can go back to this. This is an exclamation mark. People often write this incorrectly because you exclaim when you call out, you say something loudly. Okay, so don't get that word wrong, it's exclamation mark. If you need to know how to spell it, then you can ask me. Okay, let's go down to the last paragraph on this page. They are not torn down, cried Scrooge, folding one of his bed curtains in the past. They are not torn down, rings and all. Okay, this contrasts with the visions seen with the ghost of Christmas yet to come. I was just about to write past there, yet to come. Remember when one of the thieves had taken his bed curtains? And we've done quite a lot of work on that when we talked about morality. They are here, I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be, I know they will. Talk to you about modal verbs. Modal verbs here, verbs that show possibility and probability. And look what happens here. He says the shadow of thing that would have been may be dispelled. Well, that's a weak modal verb, okay? And you think, no, Scrooge, don't say maybe, they will be. And he does, look. So, between two sentences, he goes from using weak to strong modal verbs. That's something that might just be handy to know if you get this extract in an exam. Okay, and this shows his determination. That's what I'm going to write here, but I might have to write it smaller because I haven't judged the space too well. Okay, so it shows his determination. So it goes from may to will. Okay. And this just means, dispel just means sort of blown away. It doesn't have to be the way that the spirit of Christmas future told him. Okay, he's got a chance to redeem himself. He's got a chance to change his future. Okay. So I'm just looking at my notes to make sure that I haven't missed anything out so far. Okay, so can you flip the page? Okay, I'm going to stick with my blue pen because I haven't used any on this page. His hands were busy with his garments all this time, turning them inside out, putting them on upside down, tearing them, mislaying them, making them parties to every kind of extravagance. And what that means is he's all over the place. Okay, he's quite out of sorts. He's completely lost control. And that, again, I'm going to keep using this word contrast, probably. And this contrasts with his very tight control of his money and his views, actually, at the beginning. And remember, scruffy notes are okay first time through, but if your notes are getting quite scruffy, then ask for another sheet and you can make them good notes in your own time. Okay, so busy with garments, turning them inside out, putting them on upside down. What this means is he can't even dress himself properly. So imagine you're in a hurry, you're in a panic, and you put the wrong shoes on or put the shoes on the wrong way around. You find that something's inside out. You realise you're going to be late for school or late for work or late to meet your friends. You turn up and they say, oh, why's your sweater inside out? Okay. And Dickens here, if you notice, this is all one sentence. So he's building up idea after idea, this paragraph of description that's actually quite comical. Okay? And the way that he's not putting full stops or any other type of end of sentence punctuation there. Okay? So even that colon there isn't end of sentence punctuation, it only divides a sentence. Reflects this lack of control. If we wanted a highly controlled piece of writing, we'd have a lot more punctuation in there, probably. Okay. So then he says, I don't know what to do. And this captures that idea of a loss of control. So that's another reference to lost control. Earlier, at the beginning, when he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, he knew exactly what to do. He knew he didn't want to give away any of his money. He had a routine, and he was so set in his ways that other people around him had a routine as well. Everybody knew to keep out of his way, and now everything's changed. And you could put some notes here as well. So it compares with knowing his mind. I'm going to put a plus just for shorthand, and routine exactly at the beginning. Okay, there was no room for any joy in his life. He had a very mean sort of existence, and he stuck to it. I'm going to change my colour pen. So, laughing and crying in the same breath. So again, he's emotional. This laughing is something that he just didn't used to do. And you could pick out that, you know, he just didn't used to do this. So he just didn't do this in the past. He saw lots of laughing. Okay, he saw people being happy and jolly around him. He visited some Christmas parties when he was with the spirits, where he saw people enjoying themselves. Okay, Leah Cohen, okay, adds some more comedy. Okay, now Leah Cohen was a Greek character, and he was attacked. There's a famous statue of him being under attack. So this makes him a Leah Cohen with his stockings, which would be socks, okay, long socks, because it looks as though he's being attacked by his socks because he just can't get them on properly. So it looks as though S being attacked by socks. So you write it more neatly than me, because you don't have to make it visible to a camera. Okay. Let me change my colour pen just to make it a bit clearer. Nice green now. Okay, and then there's at the start of a long sentence which has got 4 similes in it. Light as a feather, happy as an angel, merry as a schoolboy, giddy as a drunken man. Okay, so we know that a feather doesn't weigh very much, so it suggests that he's light-hearted. So when he says light, he means light-hearted. Okay, and we're talking about this theme of happiness, and that means he's happy. He's in a great mood. Okay, so when you write about a simile, you need to write about the meaning and the effect. You need to write about what the simile does. So a feather is light, so it makes us think of him being light-hearted, happy. So, and he's not burdened by the misery of his earlier life. And it also reflects the relief that he feels that we talked about when we started this on the other side. Okay, happy as an angel. Okay, now the reference to an angel makes us think of this Christian message, and the Christian message is care for mankind. So mankind is all people, it's society. Okay, you don't have to be a Christian to care about other people, but there's a strong Christian message here. We talked about Christianity in our lesson on morality. So, and this is because there are Christian connotations. Connotations just means associations. So I'm going to write associations there, / connotations. So if you write connotations in an exam, it tends to sound a bit more sophisticated. Okay, so the fact that Dickens has used an angel as a comparison makes us think of the Christian message. So we've got a couple more things to do. I do need to switch my pen colour though. And he uses this metaphor, merry as a schoolboy. Now obviously you can write this means that he's in a really good mood, he's really happy, but this also reminds us of why he was miserable. Because that goes back to his school days, because he had a neglectful father, so father's neglect. Okay, you can stop the video at any time and check the spelling of this. but also we saw his sister when we were reading about the visit